I said a couple of episodes ago that the thing the Chicago Bulls gave their fans for Christmas was hope. They're winning again. They're on a good winning streak. They're playing really confident. The bench is locked in and together. So in today's episode, we're going to break down the 5 biggest things to watch out for between now and the trade deadline for the Chicago Bulls. We're also going to talk a little bit about Coby White's trade buzz, Josh Giddey's all-star push, all that, plus dive a little bit into the mailbag right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get to this content today, y'all. And I want to start off with this list, right? What are things to look out for? We've made it past Christmas. We got a couple of games left before we start the official new calendar year, but I more so want to look at the period of time between now and the NBA trade deadline, which puts you right around 6 weeks until the NBA trade deadline. And it's going to be an important 6-week period for the Bulls. So I think there's a couple of storylines to watch out for the Bulls to see what they're going to do. And, we're going to start with that list now. The first thing that to look out for, I'm going to say this, is the Coby White trade market. With all that we've heard over just the last week or so in regards to Coby White, we've heard up to 5 teams are interested in Coby White. A number of those teams being contending teams, namely Denver, reported interest there. Minnesota having some reported interest there. So, those are teams that are really, they kind of focus on looking at, making a trade for Coby White. The question becomes then about what do the Chicago Bulls do with it, right? Do they actually pull the trigger on the move? Because if they do, depending on what they get back, it will really tell us where the Bulls really see themselves at. And, whether whatever AK says or not, I'm sure after the trade, he's going to say, we still feel like we can compete for a playoff spot, even if they trade for 2 rookies that haven't checked into a game. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I'm just saying if that were to even happen, right? So, it'll tell us a lot by what that package that we get back. Do we get a veteran piece and some win-now pieces, which would tell us that the Bulls really feel like, again, that sellers with the purpose. Like, yeah, we may sold one of our younger players. We've got some stuff in here that we feel that can help us win now. Is it a big for the future? We would say, hey, we're pushing this timeline back a little bit rather than pay Coby White 30. Especially if you get a player like a Juan Berenguer back, something like that. So it would tell us something about where this team is going to be, and with just the number of teams that are reportedly interested in him as well. You gotta. It tells us how AK decides to play that trade market when it comes down to it. I still don't expect anything to really happen when there, but you just never know, and I think that's the thing. You just never know who's going to come with an offer. Especially that we're hearing that teams are calling the Bulls. It's not even necessarily the Bulls shopping. Or is anybody going to make an offer that AK feels like is a can't pass up offer? And what does that even look like for AK? For AK, we don't know. I know all Bulls fans are going to have their thing for it, but with AK, we don't know. But even the Orlando Magic, I guess, is another team you can consider. A contending team. They need even more shooting. After Desmond Bane, they had a reported interest. The compensation though was Jonathan Isaac and 2 second-round picks. So I don't know what that really does for the Chicago Bulls, right? So, we'll see. But the Orlando Magic, Atlanta Hawks, Cleveland Cavaliers, Denver Nuggets, Minnesota Timberwolves, those are the teams that have been most commonly mentioned when you put kind of all different rumors together in Coby White. But do the Bulls bite? Next up, is somebody going to eventually trade for Nikola Vucevic, who's playing much better than when he was playing earlier in the season, which is good because, I talked about Vuce. Vuce was playing so badly. Therefore, stretch is actively, hurting the team. And I'm not saying that he's playing like back to the top of where of the height of where he played before, but at least it's not hurting the Bulls as much over this recent stretch. So the question becomes about is this better stretch for him over these 4 games? He has been playing better. Is that put teams back in on him over the last 4 games? Over this 4-game winning streak, 19.5 points. 9.8 rebounds per game. He's shooting the ball 54% from the field, only 28% from 3, so he's not even doing a lot of damage from 3. He's also averaging a block and a steal and a half per game. I don't expect that to maintain for the rest of the way at all, but just if he continues playing positively, does the team come back in calling on Vooch? And the thing at this point is just about getting what you can as an asset back for Vooch. does 2 seconds get it done, with an expiring salary so you're not taking future money back? Or do the Bulls even take maybe a contract that isn't as big as Vučević's, right? But, maybe it does last into next year, but they get a first in that case. Like, that's what the Bulls have to ask themselves. And, there are going to be some teams that are looking for big man depth. Absolutely. I look at, for example, the Boston Celtics are a team that could look for big man depth with them, being, still one of the top 4 teams in the Eastern Conference, and they're going to need a big. Could it be the Warriors? We've heard the Warriors and Jonathan Kuminga basically straight up with no draft compensation or anything coming. I know Bulls fans are going to say AK and his 1-for-1 deals, but that's been something that's rumored out there. And so with those things, just interested to see what the Bulls do to get any type of value back. Even though I'm not biggest on Jonathan Kuminga or his fit on this team, if you're able to get him back for an expiring Vooch and then take a look at it, you're not really off anything, right? Like, yeah, he has a extra year on his deal next year, one past what Vooch would have with a team option. So technically the Bulls can not even pick that up after really looking at what he does from when they trade for him till the end of the season. But no, they probably will. Just knowing AK probably will want to pick up that option, give it a full season look to see where he can be at. But those are some options out there for Vooch. And so it just becomes about how does Vooch sustain a level of play, and does that bring teams back in? Not saying that the Bulls are going to get an amazing deal back, but does that bring other teams back in? And we'll see. I think at this point, it's all but written that Vooch probably shouldn't be back here. This is probably. I only say probably because I just don't count anything past Arturas Karnisovas with guys that he brought in. So I just don't count him out on keeping any of those guys. But I do think a decision maybe needs to be made, and maybe one of these fringe playoff teams, or even maybe a contender, can convince themselves that trading for Nikola Vucevic on a half a year rental, and then not have to pay him, and then maybe you can get him to come back if he plays well. Maybe a team does that with Vooch playing better. The next question: does Josh Giddey make an All-Star game? Josh Giddey's averaging 20 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists, a little over both as far as 9 there. And with the way that he's playing lately, I would not be any surprise if he gets either that rebounding or assist number up to where he's going to average close to a triple-double for the entire year. So let's not be surprised if that happens. But does that get him, an All-Star bid? And, the Bulls haven't had an All-Star in a while. Josh Giddey's putting up All-Star numbers. The question becomes about where are the Bulls at and how they view, because I don't think he's going to get the fan vote in, which means that he'd probably have to be named by the coaches and when they do all those things and picking the reserves. And so maybe that's going to happen. Now, they are changing also the format with they're doing Team USA versus Team World, something like that. So I don't know if that makes it harder or easier for Giddy to get in. If I'm being 100%, I don't know if that makes it harder or easier with you having a team specifically of players from overseas. So we'll see, right? But there's no doubt that Josh Giddey he's putting up those type of numbers. I mean, and that's all he can. That's in his control. He's putting up those type of numbers. He's playing really well, and he's playing with confidence as well. After the Trae Young thing, where Trae Young fucked with Io and patted him on the butt, and then they both got teched up. One thing that got noticed, at least I don't remember anybody pointing out at the broadcast, I caught it after the fact, what somebody posted, is that he after Josh Giddey scored on Trae in that fourth quarter, he said he's too fucking little. I love that, right? So you're seeing Josh Giddey's confidence rise, and for a player where I always say there's a part of the game where the mental part, the speed of the game, and confidence all kind of overlap, right? And if you get all those things to overlap in your prime, that's a great thing, right? And I think that's really what we're starting to see for Josh, is that all those things are starting to come together. And with him not being like an overly athletic player, no knock on him, he should be able to stay at that level for a long time once he does achieve that. Very smart basketball player. Confidence, right? When we first traded for Josh Giddey, I called him a confidence player because it felt like as the season went on and his confidence built, you saw him better and better from Josh Giddey. Now, part of that also was you saw Zach LaVine on this team and it was taking options away, stuff like that. But Josh Giddey's confidence is probably at an all-time high right now. We're seeing that on the court. We're seeing that how he talks to his teammates. We're seeing that when the team starts getting down and lets up on these big runs, he's one of the first guys to get in on guys. And that's a really good thing to see. So, Josh Giddey, does he get that all-star bid for him? And I'm sure after the offseason that he had, the negotiation with the Bulls, some own Bulls fans wanting to shit on him all offseason, getting that all-star game nod would be huge for Josh Giddey. Another player, Matas Buzelis' growth. And this is always going to be a topic for the Chicago Bulls, is that you want to see Matas' growth. And that was one of the biggest questions coming into the season, and it's still going to be one that we watch from now to the end of the season. Does does Matas continue to grow? Now, this segment is more into the to the trade deadline, but Matas has strung together some really good games, averaging over 19 points per game. How he's been scoring really efficiently, over 50% from three, and you go 7 for 8 for three-pointer one day, that's going to help that, right? But we're seeing just a Matas Buzelis who's attacking again. Stylistically, he's playing the right style of basketball and then getting the results, right? So often we talk about the results first, but I think for Matas, it's the style. It's him being attacking, him slashing to the rim, him calling for the ball, taking three-pointers confidently when the defense tries to play him for the drive. These are all smart things. And like I said on yesterday's episode, Matas has definitely made a step. Some people don't like to talk about it as that, but he's definitely made a step this season. It just hasn't been this amazing leap that some people wanted to see in year 2 for Matas, and that's okay. He's still where he needs to be. He's taken a step. I do want to see him do more defensively, but I think that's going to come with just the continued confidence and the game slowing down to him. But Matas has played really great so far, and it's a long season. We still got only 29 games played. We got more than half the season left in front of us, right? So, with that said, like, this is a stretch where, Matas is playing more confidently and now build off of that. We know he has the injury or whatever else, but just continue to build off of what you're doing there. And Matas just continues to be that player that reminds people that this guy's not done developing. And whenever he reaches his peak and his pinnacle, whatever that ends up being, we'll see where we'll be as a team with that. But, Matas' ceiling is still extremely high and it really isn't going anywhere. And then, all right, outside of that, the last thing is, where the Bulls look like they're headed towards after the trade deadline, right? And I think this can happen via moves. It can happen via the team's play. This can happen via a lot of things, right? So first, do we look like we're destined for the play-in again? And I think that's after the going 3-13, we've been there since. Like I said, I think we're 2.5 games back of a potential sixth seed in the NBA. So, like, we're not out of things yet. I want to be clear. How close the Eastern Conference is, we are not out of anything. We are 2.5 games back of the 6th seed in the East. That's it. 2.5 games. If you look from the 3 seed in the East down to where the Bulls are at the 10th seed, it's only four games that separate that. That's how wide right now the margin is for teams to move up and down in the Eastern Conference. A good winning streak, a good bad losing streak can get you in or out, right? As far as anything, the play-in, the playoffs. So, will the Bulls finish and look like they are a playing team, or will they start looking like they're a playoff team? That's the two things. Can they actually make a run for the playoffs? The thing with the Bulls is, and I know a lot of Bulls fans are going to say, Haize, we can't take another play-in. Another play-in, that means we're not progressing. And I'll say this. I'll add in this caveat. If down to the last couple of weeks of the season, we are fighting and competing, meaning that we go every other game, we go back and forth between playoffs and play-in. I think that's the only variance of difference that you have there. Because for the last few years, it's like we knew that we were going to be a play-in team. We were more so focused on, are we going to be the 10th or 9th seed and what that means for hosting that first play-in game, and that's our focus. But if we legitimately towards the last couple of weeks of the season are in an actual run, not just saying that we're in the space for a playoff spot, but I mean like, hey, we go on a couple of wins, we're in the playoff spot. The other team wins a couple of games, we're out. Like whatever that is, if we are legitimately in a battle like that, it would make it a little different. Not hugely different. I don't say it changes a lot, but it does make it hugely different. I would love to outright just win a playoff spot for this team. But that's the two questions. Do we look like we're destined for the play-in or the playoffs? What did we do at the trade deadline, and what path does that look like we're going towards? Or are we just going to be outwardly in the lottery, right? Does it look like we are going to be a just outright lottery team? And if that's the case, okay. It sucks, but that could very well be the case. And then does after the trade deadline, do we look like we are primed for another minor reset, or have they finally done what a lot of people want to see, and that's a complete rebuild? Now, I want to be clear here. A complete rebuild doesn't mean everybody's going to be jettisoned from your roster. I want a blow up and a rebuild are different, right? So, but we'll see if what that means, and if the Bulls finally do what a lot of fans have been asking for them to do and kind of bottom out and focus more on draft position. So those are the things that I'm looking for overall between now and the trade deadline to look like what the path that this team is on, and I guess we'll see, right? But for what it's worth, I'll say this, man. This team does seem to have really reinvigorated a lot of that edge that we needed, that we saw early on, right? I would assume at the end of the game after Atlanta saying we're resilient, we keep fighting, and that's true, right? I would assume we said this as well. This has been about continue to stay together, continue to get better. We understood that The losing streak was not the best basketball that we were playing, but we all knew that what we were capable of. We put it together and have been playing a great stretch of basketball. Now we've got to just keep doing it. And that's basically what I've said as well, right? Like, the reason why I just want to see this team continue it. I want to see how they bounce back from another, stretch of some having to deal and overcome with some things. But this team does have talent. They have talent to compete, and we just got to see what they're going to have here, right? Josh Giddey saying this. The first thing is that it's nice to have everyone healthy. Our depth has been a luxury for us all year, and we're finally able to use that now. I thought that even in the losing stretch, we had started to head in the right direction with habits we were building. The things we were doing on the floor just wasn't translating to wins. And then we got 4 in a row against good teams, Cleveland and Atlanta. So we're happy with it, get the break, and get ready to go against Philly. And that's what they got to do, is they got to get ready to go against Philly. They got to every opponent. Every night it's its own test. It's its own beast. You just got to lock in. And if we see that resiliency from this team, and we see this team that really fights and competes hard, and that the depth is the weapon that it looked like it was going to be coming into the season, they're going to win more games. And that's great, right? The question is, can you win more games than you lose? And can you do it consistently? And do you fall back again to where you guys have to regroup yet again after a couple of bad losses? That's really what a season is about. That's what a team identity is about. And you have to try to forge that. We've been trying to forge that for years, right? So we'll see if the Bulls can do it, man. Like I said, I'm not counting them out. I just need to see a little bit more before I let myself get completely in on it, right? So we'll see. But we do have another trade rumor before we get into the voicemail, and this one is the Bulls getting Herb Jones. Now, a lot's been made about the Bulls being buyers or sellers at the trade deadline. We've heard a lot recently about them more so being sellers with Coby, with Vuce, those type of things, and we really heard what type of players are they targeting to add to this team, if any. And so this rumor comes from Pippen Ain't Easy, and they say this. A trade for Herb Jones and DeAndre Jordan, that we'd send out Kevin Huerter, a 2026 first-round pick, that's the Blazers pick, and a 2028 lottery-protected first-round pick, and some seconds. Now, that's on paper sounds like a lot for the Chicago Bulls to give up, right? The 2026 Portland pick, that may not convey, right? But it does have protections on it to 2028, so there's that. A 2028 first-round pick, lottery-protected 1 through 14. I'm okay with that, mainly because I think if in 2 years this team is not outwardly a playoff team, then that means we're probably going to still be a lottery team and probably not give that up, right? So that's what you have to look at that for. You're protected in the sense that if your season goes wrong. Now, Herb Jones is a hell of a talent. DeAndre Jordan does add some toughness at that big man position that maybe if you want to give him a couple of minutes, but this would really be about getting Herbert Jones to the Chicago Bulls. And I'm not necessarily mad at that. My question does become about, because if you get Herb Jones, he's your starting 3. Isaac Okoro is not bringing the scoring that Kevin Huerter is bringing off the bench. So you better hope that Herbert's defense is keeping teams from scoring at the rate that you're letting them score right now, because you're going to be giving up a lot of points. You're going to be giving up some defense and some solid passing from Kevin Huerter not being on that team. Again, not a trade that I think is that I love, but it's a trade that I definitely like. And you got to give up something. We've heard that if the Pelicans do give up Herb Jones, that they do want 2 first-round picks. Now, they don't have to be unprotected, but they do view that. And so we'll see, right? It really depends on what leverage the Pelicans really feel they have considering the state of their roster. But I guess when you have the player that the people want, you can name your price at least to start. So let me know what you guys think on that deal, that rumor down below. Is that something that you would be interested in for the Chicago Bulls? Sound off on that down below. But with that, we got one voicemail. This one's from Reginald.
What's up, Haize? Merry Christmas to you and yours. Just wanted to call to respond to your video about a possible trade destination for, Coby White being the Denver Nuggets. And I believe you said his name was Peyton Watson. And while I don't disapprove of trading for Coby White away, it has to be more than just for a one-on-one type deal where the Bulls just get a talented prospect back. If I'm the Bulls, the minute I trade Coby White away, it's going to create a void, especially offensively at the 2-guard position. And a lot of people might say, well, you still got Ayo Dosunmu. Yeah, but that's still going to leave a hole on the bench, because that's where you got to move him up from. And as much as I like Ayo, I don't think he's, destined to be a 20 points, a game scorer. I see him more in the Drew Holiday role, where he can average, somewhere in the teens while giving you a good number of assists and steals. But, that's just my opinion. And being Christmas, naturally, I watched like the last 2 minutes of the game between the Lakers and the Bulls, where, it was, everybody looked at it being Derrick Rose versus Kobe. But I think we all, sometimes forget how great a player Luol Deng was. I mean, I think he only had like one All-Star appearance, but the man in that game was everywhere. He was doing everything you needed him to do. He was playing defense, he was knocking down shots. And one of the major problems, I see the Bulls team these last couple of games is the inability to knock down free throws. And in that game, when it was necessary, when it was clutch, Luol Deng, I think, went like 4 for 4 in the last 2 minutes. He made his shots. He got blocks. He got steals. He got rebounds. He got his own rebound off a missed shot. I mean, that's the type of player the Bulls need. A guy who just goes out, does his job, but steps up and goes beyond what he's asked to do in order to get the win. And that's who, if the Bulls are going to trade Coby White, I want them to trade him for. A two-way player who can do more than what's asked of him. Even if it means giving up a future draft pick to do so, I'll take it. But what's your opinion? Thanks.
I feel where you're coming from, but I will say this, right? You don't need somebody who's gonna replace the exact 20-point per game production that Coby White does. If you move him right now, I've been clear on this. I don't want to see the Bulls move Coby, but if they do and they replace him with a two-way player, even if that two-way player does average 15, 16 points, depending on how good their defense is, you see, right? I mean, they have to be a solid passer too, because Coby also creates points off assists that just a defender or even just a 3-and-D player may not, right? So you have to think about that aspect of things too. Or you can go the route that we've heard, like go future upside with like the Juan Behringer, right? So there's different options out there, but like you said, it's a possibility. And I just have to realize that the Bulls moving Coby is a possibility, and it's something that they may do. They may want to prioritize a more two-way player to be out there with next to Josh Giddey. That could be what they want to look at. So we'll see what happens there. At the end of the day, if I don't want to see them trade Coby, but I'm not going to act like I can't see moves that don't make sense and smart for them to do it either, right? It just depends on what they want to do, and I guess we shall see how it's going to shake out, my brother. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Chicago Bulls Central. This is one of the most interesting seasons for the Bulls, with not only playing 30 games, but we still got all these expirings, and we're leading to the trade deadline. So as things change, we're going to, of course, drop episodes. You guys know we're the only truly daily Chicago Bulls podcast and YouTube channel out there. Make sure you guys are subscribed. Hit that like button. Drop your thoughts down below. Leave a review if you're on the podcast side as well. And like you can follow us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. And like I like to end every episode on, stay safe, go Bulls, and always see red, y'all. Love you guys. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.